Hello there guys, Francis Gray here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel Joker Laugh. Today we're going to be building, or starting to build, the Lady Medusa from the cult classic Clash of the Titans. Okay guys, so this was sculpted by a Mr. Joe Laudati, that's Laudati. Really famous sculptor. He's worked in the toy industry for years. He's worked in he's done loads of model kits and garage kits. He's also worked in the stop motion movie back in the day. Really famous dude. Yeah, this kit was produced by a company called Rebel Resin, I believe. It was, I think it was a limited run. I think it's long out of production. I don't think you can get these no more. I believe Rebel Resin is still in operation. They do have a Facebook page, but I believe that's all they have. I don't think they've got a website or anything. So yeah, there's a link on the screen now. As you can see, you can follow it, and you can, if you're interested in this kit, you can send them a message. But me myself, I think it's long out of production. Getting back to the kit itself, I'm really happy that I get to work on this. This is a private commission. This isn't mine. Somebody sent me this, and they asked me if I'd paint it up for them. There is parameters I've got to stick to. Now, the collector, they are a big fan of Ray Harryhausen, same as me. They have an ongoing collection, and all the pieces that they already have all seem to have the same theme. So basically, they're all like a bronzed effect base coat with shades of like dark to light. There is other colours involved, but they're quite like metallic in nature. And they all seem to like fade off from bronze into a main themed dark rich colour. So as you can see here, like on the Kraken, also from Clash of the Titans, it's bronze that like lends itself into like a dark metallic-y kind of green. So yeah, so he wants this painted up so it fits in with his collection. So the parameters I've got to make fit is it's got to have a bronze base coat. I can shade from dark to light, and then Medusa's kind of like a lighter shade of light green. It's like a bluey green in comparison to the dark colours of the Kraken. So yeah, so it should be bronze lending into that. One kind of cool side effect is bronze tends to go that colour once aged anyway. So maybe I can play on that in some way. Maybe I can make it like clean bronze at the front with shades of dark shading that lends off so it looks like it's kind of aged, but obviously we all know that's a natural skin colour from the movie. So I can have some fun playing with this. So yeah, so getting back to the actual kit itself, I've got a love-hate relationship with it. If you're interested to know why, I did an in-depth video review of this kit. There'll be a link to that in the description below. Like I said, I've got a love-hate relationship with this. I love the kit. Great likeness of Medusa. Really nice size. Big, huge chunk of resin, which is always nice, especially for a bit of a resin head like me. The negatives though is there's quite a lot wrong with it. For example, there's quite a lot of bad seam lines. These can easily be cleaned up, but there's seams that go like through the snake's head, which is a key point. That'll take some work. As you can see there, like some of these fingers haven't moulded right. You can tell that this is like a later moulding or a later cast, sorry, and the mould starting to give way a little bit after multiple uses. So yeah, some parts, some bad seam lines on this, like this guy as well, but obviously because he's like a aged statue that she putrefied, ages ago. You can get away with the obvious scratch mark and the obvious like seam line that I'll do what I can, and but some parts you can't get away from. The main parts that I'm not a fan of is the bow that you get with it. Now this bow, both of them have got bad seam lines on them, but this one seems to have turned out a little bit better. It does have a connection pin at the bottom. It's a little bit too wide at the moment, but once a bit sanded, that'll be fine. And then it does have this like knobble top. Same again, needs cleaning up, but it's there. This one doesn't. That has not formed right, and it doesn't go like this one goes straight up. This one goes out. So that'll need heating up, and then I might put it in the bench press and try and straighten that out. But it didn't cast the connecting pin. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit extra work. And one other case note to add is this is the Quiver. Not a lot of detail in that. You can tell it's a later casting. Really bad connection pin, and also I'm just not a fan of it size wise. Like how many, realistically, in comparison to the size of Medusa, how many arrows could you get in that? 1, 2 maybe? Obviously, she has loads of them. So I'm thinking about discarding this. Or I might use this in some fashion, like maybe to use it to pin some of these parts together or something, I don't know. But yeah, I'm thinking about making something better than this. Kit bashing something that looks more screen accurate. So yeah, so might as well crack on. So for the next part is I'm going to go in with the Dremel, and I'm going to try and clean up some of these seams. Guys, so I went ahead and I cut off all the excess bits of resin, all the bits that we don't need. So quite a lot of the edges are all our flashings now being got rid of. Nice clean edges that'll go ahead and can just be drilled and pinned in place. I've also cut off all the big massive chunks of resin where obviously it was where it was moulded, and I've also tried to get down the seam lines as much as possible. So everything's looking good to go. I also went ahead and I took off just the sharp raised up edges of the base. Now I'm going to have to put this on a sander, so it's got like a wider coverage, so it'll be nice and flat. But I just wanted to get rid of the sharp edges first before I went ahead and put that on a sanding pad. So yeah, so getting back to these, I basically got rid of the seam lines as best I could. There's still the odd line like there, so I'm going to go in with some filler and I'm going to try and fill those out, and then I'll try and polish those, sand those with a sanding block. But as you can see there, that is still miles apart. So I've got an idea for this. What I was thinking about doing was heating it up with a heat gun, sorry, and then try to put it in a clamp and try to slowly bend it out nice and straight. So I think I might try and do this next, because if this fails, then I know I need to probably try and cast this or make something else. So hopefully this can be saved. guys, so I want to go ahead and I want to talk about the hands, or the arms, for a moment. Now, this one cleaned up pretty nicely, so as you can see there, that seam line's now gone. Same on the underside as well. I've also went ahead and I drilled out the awkward resin bubbles that were formed in the ends of the connecting pieces. So this hand and the arm turned out pretty nice. I am still thinking about maybe carefully drilling straight through this and adding a pin for the connecting pieces to go into. Now I did sand this down, so that does fit, but I think this will be a piece of resin that will easily just break and chip off. So I'm thinking about getting rid of that, leaving this nice and straight and flush, and then drilling and pinning it. So that'll make for a much stronger connection. This hand and arm did not fare as well. Basically, there's quite a lot of trapped air inside the resin, which means that you got what's called like resin skin. So you got like a thin layer of resin, but the second you apply any pressure to it, like when you're painting or when you're drilling, it basically caves in. You want to get rid of those as soon as possible. If you see one, just get rid of it, just erode around it, make the hole visible where it is, and then add in the detail with milliput or Abe's Epoxy, or even air dry model clay to a point. But probably Abe's Epoxy or milliput's probably your best bet. So anyway, I don't know if the camcorder will pick it up, but there's a pretty big seam in there. I'll get a pointer. So there's a seam here, an air hole here, which was pretty big. So that's on the snake wrapping around the arm. That'll need filling in. There's also one here, just where the arm's leading to the hand. That's pretty deep as well. That'll need filling in with Aves. And then this big, thick, chunky finger, I've grinded that down as much as I could, but as you can see there was another trapped air bubble inside. So it just as soon as the bit hit it just opened up. So that'll need filling in. So I can see this whole thumb really being re-sculpted. The seam line came off okay. You can still see it where a little bit was, so I might have to add a little bit of texture there to compensate for that. And there's also this part here corroded as well, but that shouldn't be a problem. That can be easily resculpted. Oh yeah, another tiny bit that you won't see on camera, I don't think, but there's another air hole in the finger there. Usually find on resin kits that the fingers and hands are usually the hardest part to mould, or the hardest part to get right. So yeah, so this hand's going to be quite a bit of work. This hand, not so much. So yeah, before I crack on with the other pieces, I might as well mix a bit of Aves and try and regain some of these missing details. Okay guys, so while we still got a little bit of Aves mixed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push it in here, where the torso of the putrefied guy is. So that's basically going to be pushed down. And then we really want to get it worked in there. And then we want to lift them straight up And then that should make a really good connection seam later on. Okay guys, so the sooner we go ahead and we drill and pin this, the better. Really, if anything goes wrong, it's easier to fix it now than it is later on. So I'm going to take this drill bit and I'm going to carefully drill a hole right down the centre of where the handle to the bow is, and I'm going to insert this long piece of dowel. Now before I go ahead and do that, I'm basically just going to get a sanding block and I'm going to add some scuff marks to this. Basically that just gives the glue something to hold on to. You can also go ahead with a hobby knife or a knife and add a few little score marks. Okay, so now that that's got a few score marks on there, let's go ahead and carefully drill this. Now, in situations like this, it's usually a good idea to drill in from one side and then drill in from the other side, and then hopefully the two holes will meet and then you'll have your channel, where if you try to drill just from one side, the chances are you'll come out where the fingers are. So just a little tip there for you. There you go guys. Okay guys, so before I go ahead and start adding the snakes to the Medusa, I'm going to have to do a little bit of drill and pinning. So basically just a fine drill bit, carefully drill in a hole and then use some of this, these wire, simple bits of wire. Basically just glue it into place and then snip off a bit of excess and then leave the other side protruding. Okay guys, so now we've gone ahead and we've cut off all the excess bits of metal. We can go ahead and we can super glue them in place. Okay, so we'll leave them to dry. Okay guys, so for the next part we're going to go ahead and we're going to try and map out what snakes need to go where. So the metal pin is now glued in place on all the snakes. That's been left to dry. So we need to try and map out what goes where, and we need to drill or carefully drill in some channels so we know what goes where. We do have a bit of reference material. You get this with the kit. It's basically 4 sides of the Medusa head. So yeah, let's try and do the best we can. Worst case scenario, we'll just have to add what we can where we can, see what looks like it's a natural flow, and just try our best really. So yeah, let's crack on with that. Okay guys, so I went ahead and I mapped out all where the snakes should go. That took me quite a while to do because there was these snakes really didn't want to fit to their designated spots. So yeah, there's a lot went right and there's a lot that went wrong. Getting into it. All the connections seems basically had to be reworked. I basically tried to grind each snake down as best I could to make a simplistic fit. And then wherever the gaps where that it wouldn't connect to, I basically just filled them in with Aves Epoxy and then tried to sculpt in a little bit of a scale pattern. So as you can see here, this was the head, and then a pin to this part here. So Aves Epoxy going around. So that basically goes all the way around for all the different connections for all the snake heads. There was a part I didn't have with this kit, which was this part here. Now I've checked the reference pictures, and it seemed to have been a tail end. So basically, all I did was I just basically drilled and pinned a bit of metal, and then I put a tiny bit of wire around it, put some super glue on, and then put Aves Epoxy over the end, and basically just fashioned a new tail. There was a couple of air bubbles that were trapped in the resin, like we talked about earlier. Basically, those got filled in. So yeah, and the only other thing of note was this part here is actually just all one snake. So originally we drilled and pinned both ends, so basically I just had to take the pin out of this end and then sandwich it together, glue it, and then fill in the middle with Aves Epoxy, and then super glued it in place. So I'm hoping that this was probably the hardest part of this build, or the most complex. So yeah, now that we've mapped all that out, I suppose the next best thing to do is to probably put a little bit of Aves Epoxy on the arms, or the arm areas, and then basically push them in place, and then try and get a decent fit. So it might be a good idea to go ahead and maybe drill a hole in one of the ends, so when I push it into the Aves, I'll see where the other hole needs to be drilled. Okay guys, so this arm doesn't really want to fit in as snug as it could have, but same again, we now know where to drill the hole. We'll let this dry, and then that'll just add as a bridge, and then once glued on we can fill around the sides. Same goes for this side down here. Now I had to break one of these snakes a little bit forward. Basically it was stopping the arm sitting flush in place. So I've basically just snapped the connection, pulled it a bit forward, and then I'll rework this bit later. Okay guys, so as you can see there, the Aves epoxy is now dried. What I did with this part here, because obviously when we pushed the other part of the arm in, where the hole is where we've just drilled, left a bubbled up impression here. Basically you want to get rid of that, so I just took a little bit of tube. You usually get these on tops of like really small fine paint brushes. So I basically just took one of them and then just pushed it in, twirled it around, pulled it off, and then I've got a perfect hole. So yeah, in theory these should, once that's drilled, these should line up perfectly to be drilled and pinned. So as you can see there, that's sitting a lot better. It's not perfect, but once it's been drilled and pinned and glued, then we can go in and we can add in this missing detail here. So same with this one as well. That's fitting a lot better. There's still a bit of a gap there, as you can see, but same again. Once drilled and pinned and glued, though that can be filled in with Aves epoxy, and then we can go ahead and try and sculpt some of that bobble pattern that's going around that raised ridged surface. So yeah, so before I go ahead and add this arm, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to try and add the bows, the two parts to the bow, basically because it's easier to do that now than it is when she's glued. So I'll do that in a bit. For the next part, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to carefully drill these holes out. Hi guys, so I went ahead and I sanded the bottom of this base. As it was where it was molded, it was there's quite a lot of excess resin on the top, some sharp edges, and yeah, it needed sanding down. So I went ahead and I put it on a belt sander. You didn't really miss much. I didn't record it. It was just basically just a belt sander was going. And then I just held on to this part here and I just pushed it on, and then I kept turning it around until it was it took a couple of millimeters off. So yes, that's nice and smooth now. Now there are some parts here where when it was molded there was trapped air in, so there's like loads of bubbles and holes and where it doesn't really line up. So this will need filling in with either Aves epoxy modeling clay or polyfiller, and then left to dry, and then once dry, same again, go over it with sanding. There's another air bubble there. Well, there's a few of them running down the sides there. There's a few little extra parts here and there. Now there was a big chunk missing here, so I've just gone ahead and I've just put some Aves epoxy modeling clay in there, so that'll fill that out nicely. Another air bubble there, and there's a few dotted around the sides as well, and a few on the front here. So yeah, so what I will do next is I will get some polyfiller and I will fill those in. Before I go ahead and do that, I wanted to show the column as well. This, as you remember earlier on in the video, there was really ridged, raised up seams where it was casted, just not a great casting. The mold must have been on its way out, or it wasn't lined up properly, I don't know. But yeah, same again, belt sander, put it on, carefully went around. It has took a bit of detail off that zigzag sign, that zigzag pattern. But if I'm truthfully honest, it kind of adds to the fact that it's like aged and worn. So I might go ahead and just see how it looks as is. I might add some kind of pattern, maybe, I don't know. I'll go ahead and see how it is first of all. And then getting back to the actual connection for this to this, it doesn't really want to sit flush. You have to basically play around until it feels like it's, there you go, it's supposed to be, oh, it's not that. So yeah, as you can see, it's just not very thingy at all. So yeah, so what I'm going to have to do is I probably have to take another little bit of resin off here with the belt sander, and then I'm thinking about drilling some holes and then putting some kind of either epoxy or milliput in place, and then yeah, hopefully we've got a better connection. So yeah, so anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. For the next part, polyfiller, and then leave to dry. Okay guys, so same as before, we are going to go ahead with a fine drill bit, and we are going to drill and pin this hand onto this arm using this pin. Okay, so we'll leave that to dry and then we'll fill in the seam. Okay guys, so I want to go ahead and I want to add a bit more work or a bit more detail to the two parts of the bow. So as you can see, they're heating it up and clamping it. It straightened it out nice and lovely. So that can be definitely used now. Now, there's going to be a problem with the connection seams on the bottom. That's kind of flimsy, so I'm thinking about just cutting it off and then carefully drilling some holes in, and then drilling and pinning it to the metal that's protruding of the handle. So, but before I do that, there's supposed to be little round knobbly bits at the top here and here, but as you can see there, they haven't casted very well. So what I was thinking was, I thought I might go ahead and cut those off and then carefully drill a tiny little hole and then replace them with these. So that's basically just one of those little pins that you can get with a little round bubble on top. So the idea is this is going to be replacing that there, and then later on, because there'll be a natural groove between the two, when we go to add the string, there'll be somewhere to wrap the string around a couple of times and then pull it down and then do the other side. So yeah, so it'll help us further on down the road. Okay guys, so yeah, that's nice and straight now, and they are roughly the same size. So I can go ahead and I can carefully drill and pin these into place. Okay, so very fine drill bit, and yeah, hopefully the gods are with us and we can yeah, try and channel this out. Okay guys, so I went ahead and I snipped off a little bit of the metal, so that now fits in brilliantly. So yeah, so I'll go ahead and I'll make the other one up, and then we can super glue these in place. Okay, so there's the second one. So yeah, so we'll just add a tiny drop of super glue to each one, and then we'll leave them in, put them back in place and leave them to dry. Okay guys, so I went ahead and I added a little bit of Abe's epoxy, basically just filling in that little seam line and making it look like it's all natural flowing up to this ball bit at the top. I will go in later on with a sanding block and smooth that down. In fact, I might go over the full thing with a sanding block because there's still some parts that are a little bit rough to the touch. So yeah, but before we go ahead and do that, I'll just show you I did the same with the other one as well. But before we go ahead and do that, I need to carefully drill some holes in the bottom to basically pin to these parts here. So I'm going to go in with the same fine drill bit, basically just to make a channel, I suppose. And then I'm going to swap drill bits over, and I'm going to go in with a wider drill bit to open the hole up a little bit. Okay guys, so that seems like probably as best a fit as we're going to get. Same goes for the bottom side as well, but at least the it is drilled and pinned and will hold in place. So the next idea will be to glue it in place and then probably Abe's epoxy a little bit over it. Okay guys, so for the next part I want to go ahead and I want to glue this hand in place. The two reasons why is this snake, even though he's been reworked, seems to be causing a bit of a problem. So as you can see there, it nestles up to this hand. Now we can use that to our advantage because obviously we can add a little bit of glue to it, which helps support it in a different section as well. But as you can see there, there's quite a bit of a gap that'll need filling in, and there's a tiny bit here that'll need smoothing down. So, but the back part sits nice and flush. So yeah, so might as well go ahead and try and glue this now, and then we can be adding more to it as we go. So to glue this, I'm going to try this two-part epoxy resin. Basically, it's part A, part B in a tube. You push that down, comes out the end, and then you mix it together. And then once you've got quite a bit of it well mixed, you then put it on the parts that you want to glue, and then just hold it in place. So this is supposed to be a really strong glue. And with all these little air bubbles and nooks and crannies that are in the arms, hopefully the resin will seep into them, making a much tighter fit. So yeah, so might as well crack on. Okay guys, so I went ahead and I epoxy glued Medusa's right arm to the top of her shoulder. While I was trying to do it, unfortunately it would just not sit totally flush. It's when I was trying to glue it to Striver, it would try and stick this side, but then there was a huge gap on the back, or vice versa. So what I ended up doing was I ended up using this repositioned snake as a strength rather than a weakness. So I used a little bit of that same epoxy resin to glue this snake to this arm here. So she's, instead of just fastened via the one connection, she's actually fastened via two. So yeah, so I just basically just held that in place with a pair of clips. And then that did leave a bit of a gap on the back here. So basically just Aves Epoxy to the rescue. Once it all dried, mixed some Aves, took me time, filled in the gap, filled in the seam, and then I went in and I did some extra details. So the bottom is this softer scale skin, and that runs all the way around, and then this part here, which is a little bit thicker, a little bit like alligator skin, I suppose. I basically continued on the pattern, and then added some more little raised up bits. I also went ahead and I filled in this part here, which was that connection seam for the quiver. But as we've said before, this quiver is definitely not on my like list. So yes, I thought I'd cover that over for now. I'll continue on adding this strap at some point, and then we can at some point soon think about making a much better, more screen accurate quiver for her. So yeah, so this is nice and solid now. This is nice and dried and hardened. So the next part will be to add this one, but before we do that, we need to epoxy glue the two ends of the bow. So while we're still talking about that, I went ahead and there was quite a lot of scratches on this. So I went ahead and I give the full thing a coating of polyfiller, basically just to give it an all one like toned skin, I suppose. So the next job is to go in with a sanding block and try and sand these back smooth, and then hopefully we got rid of some of the unwanted scratches. Okay guys, so I don't know if the camera will be picking this up, but those are a lot more smoother now and a lot more nicer to look at. Okay guys, so for the next part we're going to go ahead and we're going to try and glue these on. Now I'm only going to glue one at a time because it will probably be a nightmare trying to glue both ends and keep them symmetrical. So I want to glue this side first, try and keep it as straight as possible, and then I'll go ahead and then add the other side. I'm just going to try and use just regular super glue with this. I will strengthen it up later. I might do that with a little bit of epoxy resin, or I might just go over it with Aves Epoxy, or I might do both. I don't really know yet. But yeah, so for now I'm just going to crack on with this one piece. Okay, so we'll set this somewhere to dry and then we'll come back to it in a bit. Okay guys, so for the next bit there's a few parts that I'm going to need to put on the belt sander. The first one is this shield. As you can see there, it's very one-sided, where it's obviously a build-up of resin has gone over the side. So it looks like when they've moulded it, they have moulded it on a flat surface. It's been a little bit slanted, so it's obviously cured in a different angle. So there's quite a lot of fragile parts here that'll probably chip away. So I'm going to try and erode this side down as best I can and then try and do something with this. I might sand this part with a sanding block. Same with this, there's some raised edges there, that's quite sharp. Same again, that'll all need sanding. And also the sanding block will make this from a shiny, smooth resin where glue would struggle to stick to a scratched surface. So it'll be a lot better to glue later on. And then getting back to the main pillar, same again, this needs to be smoothed down a little bit.
because it's a bit too bulky at the moment. So yeah, so I'll go ahead and do that and show you the finished results. Okay guys, so I just got back from the belt sander, so I just took off a couple of millimeters of that, so that looks like it will probably fit a lot better now. I will do more to this in the next stage, but I'll talk about that at a later point. Here's the shield. So it's I've got rid of all that excess resin that was built up over the sides, and the back is scratched. This part isn't, because this part is that flimsy that I didn't dare take anything off that. So I might just go in with a little scouring pad and just add a couple of little scratch marks, so the glue's got something to hold on to later on. So that hasn't turned out too bad, but unfortunately the way it's moulded, it is like too heavy on one side, so it's not completely shield like. So, but there's nothing I can do about that. And then underneath, no longer smooth and shiny, so it's all scratched up. That gives something for the glue and the paint to hold on to. There's a few little air holes which they're just in this kit all over the place, so that'll need filling in as well. I'm just going to go around with a file, basically just making this more of a natural bevel or a natural corner. There's no point in me filming that because it's just me doing that till I'll go all the way around it. Yeah, so I'll crack on with that, and then I'll think about doing more with this. Okay guys, so now that this is a bit more smoothed down, it does fit a lot better, but with it being smooth, that's not great for adding the glue later on, because the glue tends to prefer roughed up surfaces. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to go over it with the hacksaw and basically just add various lines and cuts, basically just so the glue's got something stronger to hold on to. Okay guys, so I don't know if the camcorder's picking that up, but that's a lot more scratched now. So I might go ahead and I might add a couple of drill holes as well, but for the most part that texture is a lot better to hold on to now. So yeah, so I'm happy with that.
Hi guys, so I went ahead and I filled in all the little missing details on the bottom there. So all these thousands and millions of little air holes are now filled in, going all the way. All that missing detail on the side there is now restored. Same here, here, loads of it here, here, and then obviously this big chunk here with the Aves epoxy. So the bottom of the base is nice and flat, I'm happy to say. That turned out really well. The next job is we need to start trying to get this fella into shape here. So I'm trying to think, that is the most natural fit there. So let's mark that off. So there we go, so a nice and natural fit. Okay, so we need this to sit in there, but now we've got these holes and scratches, we can make a much better, tighter fit. So I'm going to use some of this stuff, which is milliput. This is the terracotta version. Basically, I'm just going to put that on here and then push this in place, and then leave it probably a good 24 hours to fully harden. Okay, so when you go to use milliput, you get basically inside you get two sticks, so it's like part A, part B. You want to unwrap the first one. So this is where these lines come in handy. So line it up, and then I'd probably say we need 2. So we go. So there's a chalk cutting into that. And then the same goes with the other one. Okay, so then you just get your two halves. There's always a bit of residue comes off. Yeah, it's stuck to the base now. Yeah, and then basically just get mushing. Okay guys, so once it's all been really mushed together and you have this unified colour, it does get all over your fingers by the way. If you've got sensitive skin, I'd always recommend using rubber gloves for this. So once you've got it mixed, basically just mush it on in there. Try and spread it out as best you can. And then push it on down. Okay guys, so for the next part we want it to be nice and level and straight, so I went ahead and I took off the turntable. So I know this desk is nice and straight, so now that that column's in place, we can adjust it to be dead set straight on. Okay, so according to this, that is bang on level. So we'll leave this 24 hours to dry, and then we'll see how solid it is. We might have to add some glue or some epoxy resin. If not, we can just go ahead and we can fill these seams in with Abe's epoxy. Okay guys, so we went ahead and we let the milliput dry. So that's been drying for about 18 hours now. So it took a bit of persuasion, but I managed to remove this from that. We needed that to be removed anyway, so we could add some epoxy resin glue. So as you can see there, the milliput's nice and dry, and it's created these connection grooves to the bottom of there. So yeah, so for the next stage, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to mix a little bit more epoxy resin, and we're going to apply it to the base, and then we're going to sandwich that back on top. So there you go guys, just weigh it down and leave it to dry. We left this a good 24 hours to fully harden and dry, so that epoxy resin has got in all the nooks and crannies and really made this nice and tough and taut. So before I crack on with the next bit, with there being so many separate parts, so we've got the base, we've got the column, we've got the top of the column, and then we've got the main bust and Medusa. So if there being 4 separate parts, I wanted to try and unify all the parts together via the same, like a backbone I suppose, or a spine. So I wanted something to go in here, through the other piece, and then halfway up through the Medusa bust. So while I was looking around my local DIY store, I bought one of these. So it's basically a metre long metal rod. It's 6mm wide, and it's that like where you put nuts and bolts on, so it's like a threaded rod. So yeah, so the idea is I'm gonna try and carefully drill a hole in here. I'm just gonna use one of those I think it's called a step bit. I just want to basically just drill a little hole just to get it started, and then I'm going to swap to this long thin one, and I'm going to try and drill straight down, and then once I've got that hole, I know where to add the next parts. So yeah, so what can go wrong? Okay guys, so as you can see there, I drilled, it accidentally came out the other end, but that's no big deal, because I can probably use that as a strength, so when I feed it down I can actually see where the rod's going up to. So I basically, as long as I keep it on a flat surface, then when I go to add it, it'll go all the way down to the bottom. So that's actually a happy mistake, that. So yeah, so let's see if the rod fits. Like a charm. Okay, so let's do a quick bit of math. So we have this as well, so by the time you add that, and then say halfway up Medusa's stomach, so probably about here. So now that I've marked that off, I can get the grinder out and I can cut that off, and then I know exactly that I've got a all one channel spine. Okay guys, so for the next part, because we actually went through and drilled all the way through the bottom, now is probably a good opportunity to use that as an advantage. So basically, so this side is front facing. So let's mark that. Okay, so same as before, we can use the measurements to map out the centre. So it's 11 centimetres, so that's 5.5. So I know where the middle is. I go back to using the step bit. Okay guys, so when I measured it up, it should have been bang on, but for some reason it was slightly a couple of millimetres more over this way. So I basically just widened the hole a little bit better, or a little bit wider, sorry. So that now sits nice and flush. So in theory, we now know where we'll be needing to drill up into Medusa. So now that we have our centre hole in this, we can measure where that will be on the Medusa. So basically you just flip it upside down, get a pencil, make sure that's nice and straight, and then just draw a hole underneath. So now we know where we need to drill in the Medusa. As you can see there, we've got quite a way to go. So I don't know if I'm going to use all of this. I might go back with the grinder and grind a couple of centimetres off, so I don't have to go too far into the Medusa. I'll go a little bit further and then see what we've got left. Okay, so same again. Yeah, I'm not loving drilling up this, because if this breaks, if a column breaks, I can probably fix that. If this breaks, that part will be hidden, so I can fix that. I very much doubt that the base will break, because that's really chunky. But if this breaks, this will be a nightmare to fix. So I think that hole is nice and deep enough to hold that. So what I can do is just hold it all in place, and then same again, get a pencil and mark off where I need to cut it. Okay, so let's go and cut this, and then hopefully it'll fit. Okay, so a moment of truth. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, I think it's just a little bit too much. Okay, so it doesn't want to sit flush, and there's a little tiny bit protruding at the bottom. Oh dear. Okay guys, so what I ended up doing was I ended up measuring where the metal rod went up to Medusa, and then I basically just bent it a little bit in a vise. So in theory, this should now fit, as long as it's the right angle. Yay! Yay, I'm a lot happier. That's really nice. So yeah, so we now know which way it needs to be epoxied. So I'll just do a little scar mark just so we know. So there we go, there's our little scar mark. So that's the front, and this is where it needs to be bending back towards. So yeah, let's break out the epoxy resin. So before I go ahead, and I'm not going to glue it all in one go, because I want to be able to work on Medusa separately. So she's going to be glued more or less last. But for the most part, I can go ahead and I can epoxy this in place, and then I can probably think about maybe epoxying this in place. I might also add a couple of more pins here and there just to keep it secure. So yeah, so might as well crack on with that. Okay guys, so I went ahead and I measured where to epoxy up to, because I don't want to get any epoxy on this top part, because obviously, like I said before, we're not gluing Medusa just yet. So yeah, so I've got my trusty mixing bits. So the idea is just basically mix a load, put it on, put it in place, put a little bit more on this, set that in place, and then I'm going to put Medusa on top just to make sure everything hardens in the right spots basically. Before we go ahead and do that, I basically got a scalpel and just put some scar marks on the underside of here just to basically make it something for the epoxy to hold on to. So yeah, so let's crack on. Okay, so that looks like it's quite nice actually. Looks like it's quite straight. So yeah, so we'll leave that probably a good 24 hours to fully dry, and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. Okay guys, so while we're waiting for this to dry, I've decided that this video is getting a little bit on the long side now. So yeah, so if you enjoyed this video so far and you're liking how this build is going, please smash that like button, and please share this video on your social media like your Facebook and your Twitter, etc, because it helps new people find my channel, which I'm always appreciative of. Thank you very much. So yeah, so don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video. If the next video is filmed, there'll be a link in the description bar below. If there's no link there and it just says coming soon, then obviously I'm still filming it. But yes, but don't miss out on that if you're enjoying this so far. So yeah, so look out for part 2. Hope you enjoyed this video. Smash that like button, share on Facebook and Twitter. And thank you for watching, and see you next time. Thank you very much. Goodbye.